Good morning, this is Alamon, and welcome to this Europa Universalis IV Art of War Let's Play of Korea. I played Korea a couple times in previous versions of the game, but there are a few changes in this new version, Art of War, that I think really make it a compelling choice for anyone to play, both in terms of the early game and consolidating power in East Asia, as well as the later colonial game. There have just been some really interesting changes. So this is an introductory video. We're going to dig into a few of those changes that I think are that should make for an especially compelling Let's Play. And then, I hope to see you in Episode 1 in the actual gameplay. Alright, so without further ado, welcome to Courageous Korea. Now here is the world map, 11th of November 1444. We can see as far southwest as India, we can see Indonesia in the southeast, and up into Manchuria in the northeast. If we look a little bit more closely, in previous versions of the game, Korea had basically three neighbors. They had the Ming, the Manchu, and then all of those little daimyo states in Japan. You could sort of count Ryukyu, I suppose, but doesn't quite count unless you're dealing with DDR Jake. Anyway, the Manchu, first of all, that was an anachronistic name, as is Korea, but the Manchu have been split into four Jurchen tribes now. We have the Korchin, the Haixi, the Jianzhou, and the Jurchen. And if we look at Korea itself, it has been divided from 8 provinces into 13, and the navy in particular has been really buffed. We start out with quite a lot of ships, and unless we would want to go to war with Japan right away, there's really no reason to have all those galleys and all those cogs. So I guess I'll get to try out that new mothball mechanic. Now, looking a little closer at the Jurchens here, we have 4 different states, and they're going to be my first target. And there are some historical reasons why I want to do this. If we go back a millennium before Europa Universalis, 5th century, here we are in sort of the earlier phases of the Three Kingdoms era of Korean history. We have the Goguryeo in the north, and then the Silla and the Baekje in the south, as well as the Gaya Confederacy, but they were annexed fairly early on by Silla. But you can see the modern border of Korea is on the map there, the light lines representing the Yalu and Tumen rivers, and Goguryeo has quite a lot of land going up north into Manchuria, as well as the Liaotong Peninsula there on the left-hand side of the map. If we go forward another century, we see Goguryeo has expanded considerably further north and northeast, going along the coast of the Sea of Japan. Silla, by this point, has annexed the Kaya. And go a couple more centuries, Silla has consolidated its power on the peninsula. There is no more Baekje. And Silla also defeated Goguryeo. But there is a successor state to the Goguryeo, the Palhe. So the traditional story goes that the Goguryeo aristocracy formed a new ruling class and kind of fled further north and ruled over this rather ethnically diverse state of the Palhe. And you can see it extends far up northeast into Manchuria, almost all the way to Sakhalin Island. It's a lot of territory, really more territory than the entire Korean peninsula when you look at it. Go forward a little more in history, and here's actually where we get the nation from which we get the word Korea. This is the Korea, 11th century. And they were actually quite small. They did not fill all of what is now modern Korea. They were missing a large chunk of the north. A lot of what would now be Hamgyong, Hamgyongdo. There's Hamgyeongbukdo, Hamgyeongnamdo, whatever, Hamgyeongdo. And so here is our starting point in Europa Universalis. This is the kingdom of Joseon, ruled over by the Yi dynasty. We start the game under the reign of the 4th king of the dynasty, King Sejong the Great. His in-game name is rendered as To-yi, which is a little strange, but he wasn't known as Sejong until after his death, so I guess that's the best that they can do. But only about 10 years before the start of the game, around the 1430s, this Chosun military expedition went in and filled in what is on this map labeled as Hamgil-do, what is now modern Hamgyeongdo. And that was only freshly being resettled by Koreans. So this is something, again, incredibly recent from the point of view of the 1444 bookmark. So in this Let's Play, I'm going to continue that momentum, take over certainly the Jianzhou, the Haixi, and the Jurchen, and the Korchin don't quite fall into the historical territory of Kokoria or Palhe, but we're going to go for them anyway. Why not, right? Now, once we've consolidated our hold on the northeastern part of East Asia, that leaves Japan. Now, Japan is always a thorn in the side of anyone playing in East Asia. I'm a little worried in this new patch because supposedly the naval AI has been substantially improved. They should be much better at launching invasions. And in fact, that would be historic, or based in history. Japan invaded Korea a number of times, most famously in the 16th century, the two Hideyoshi invasions, neither of which succeeded, though. Japan did quite well for itself in those invasions, but didn't quite take over Korea. That would have to wait until the end of the 19th century into the early 20th century, but that's outside of the scope of the history of this game. Now, what makes Japan much more manageable to conquer are all of these strait crossings between Kyushu, Shikoku, and Honshu, and also Hokkaido, but Japan doesn't really extend that far up. Actually, in this patch, instead of being uncolonized land, it's actually held by the Ainu, which is really interesting. I don't think we'll be able to interact with them, though, because it's still undiscovered territory, and I'm not quite sure how we would discover it unless we held a bordering province. And I guess the only province would be where the Date are, right there. But that's a possibility. But yes, just exploiting the strait crossing mechanics is what you always have to do to take over Japan, because they do get discipline bonuses, and they're just kind of tough to fight in a straight-on battle. But it is manageable with these game mechanics. Slightly cheesy, but manageable. Now there is the Liaotong Peninsula. It used to be just one province, and now it is three. We have Shenyang, Andong, and Gaizhou. We're going to act pretty deferential toward the Ming, though. We're going to try to be historical in that sense. Because, this is a very Confucian era, and there was this kind of big brother, little brother relationship between the Ming and Joseon. And so, unless the Ming backstab us, we're just going to, let that go. Even though the Liaotong Peninsula was historically part of Kokoria and Palhe, we'll just let it go. But if relations do sour, we're going to jump right on that. That will be our first objective, to secure that peninsula again. Trading nodes are pretty interesting here. I don't want to talk too much about this. I think most people find this to be a more boring aspect of the game. That dark green node in the top right, that is the Kirin trade node, and it does pull in trade from California. We can see that in this shot here. We can see 0 is being sent forward to Kirin. I'm not sure why it doesn't show up on this part of the map. Maybe it doesn't connect through until you've mutually discovered each other. I'm not really sure. But, these have all been quite shuffled around a lot, and if you've been used to playing in East Asia, you would see that. One interesting thing, though, is every single node visible on this screen ultimately feeds into the Yumen trade node there on the top left of the screen. And I don't know that I quite want to go that far over. I mean, over there you're getting into Oirot territory. I don't really like dealing with the hordes. But yeah, anyone who can secure that node and can push trade, or really pull trade from all these other nodes, would really be in a wonderful position trade-wise. Alright, and last but not least, on this map, where the Kamchadals are, on the Kamchatka Peninsula, that was the closest port between Asia and Alaska. That province where the Chukchi are right now did not exist. That was wasteland. And it used to be that, I don't remember the exact tech levels, but you could get very, very, very close to being able to colonize the Aleutian Islands, but the colonial range wasn't quite there. But now we do have this new province, Kagirgan, which starts under the Chukchi in the 1444 bookmark, and it has a port, roughly midway up the coast there. That should be close enough to Alaska to enable us to really move forward the timeline on colonization, and certainly we should be able to get California under our grasp pretty early on in the game if we really aggressively pursue a colonial policy, and that should really help change the later game as well. Alright, so there we go. That's the quick overview of what we're going to try to do in the first 100 or so years. Take over those Jurchen tribes to the north, fight the Japanese, eventually turn on the Ming if they turn on us first, and take advantage of that Chukchi, or rather Kagirian province, to hop over to Alaska as soon as we can and go down the west coast. And we should have a nice Pacific Rim power pretty early on in the timeline, which should make, again, for some really interesting later gameplay. Alright, I hope to see you in the first video of the gameplay of the series. Until then, good night, sleep tight, and don't let the grayskin bite. Bye-bye.